Good morning. This is Stephanie Gunning, and I'm here with Debbra Lupien, the author of Akasha Unleashed, The Missing Manual to You, which came out in November this year. I love this book because I believe that the Akashic Records are something universal to all humanity and so interesting. And Debbra is one of those talented people who has the ability to read them for others. And so let me just give you her quick take. Hang on, I want to read you this one thing from, was something that she channeled from her Akashic guides. You were born to live a life of unrelenting joy and fulfillment. You will know when you are off track, when you no longer feel that way. When this happens, we urge you to stop, reassess, figure out where the misalignment is and correct it. If you need help, you need only ask, and we will send you guidance through signs and intuitive nudges. If you miss the nudge, we will rinse and repeat until you become aware. This is from Akasha Unleashed. Debbra is the answer diva. That's what she's known as on her website, Akasha Unleashed. She specializes mostly in helping women discover their soul purposes and embrace their magnificence and unleash their potential. She believes the Akashic Records are your birthright, a powerful tool intended to be used to help you create a magnificent, even magical life. When you need answers, to understand yourself better and grow and evolve as a soul, she is the woman to turn to. And I love this whole combination of things that you've got going here. So your book is Akasha Unleashed, The Missing Manual to You. So you're obviously have set forth to help us to grow on our own so that we're not always dependent on you. And at the same time, you're somebody that we can go to for assistance in working with this material. And you've provided so much in this one small volume. Maybe we just go back and tell us, what are the Akashic Records?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. It's been quite the journey bringing this book to fruition with you. That was amazing in itself. And now that the book is out and people are starting to respond to it, it just affirms what I had felt when I was divinely guided to put this together, because people keep asking me, as you would imagine, pretty much the same questions, and it's universal truth, so it really applies to everybody. And what I'm getting in the feedback, which is lovely, is that, yeah, it makes sense. Now we're getting what these Akashic Records are, and now we see how we actually might be able to use this as a tool to help us in our life.
What are they? Some people watching this have never heard of them before.
Okay, they are actually the record of your soul since the time it was created. So if you believe in reincarnation, that means there could potentially be thousands of lives that are archived in your Akashic Records. But for me, one of the most important things about it is that it contains all the information about how your soul is wired. So it explains you to you. So all of these little idiosyncrasies that we each have that we maybe don't understand why they are the way they are. Like for me, I obsessively have to research and learn. And when I do learn something, it's immersion. It's not normal study. I have to immerse myself. And when I had my records read, I learned that one of my gifts is about gathering wisdom and sharing it with other people. So, okay, wow, now I get why I'm so OCD about researching things. So,
and people don't know this about you, but you worked in information technology way at the beginning when other people didn't even know what the heck that was. And so this has been something that's really a part of you far, far before it was applied to this etheric information technology, right?
Yeah,
I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it's how my soul is wired. So I've always been this way. I just didn't understand it. And sure, when I was doing databases, I was totally immersed in that and living it, breathing it, sleeping it, and dreaming it sometimes. And yeah, I was in the IT world back when the internet started. So I had one of the earlier websites out there, so it goes way back. But the cool thing about it is that I didn't know at the time, of course, when I was data mining for people, creating these databases so that they could access that information and empower themselves, that it was just a preparation for the work that I'm doing now, because now I'm data mining their Akashic records. And because we are such complex beings, and we've had so many varied experiences, the records just provide this deep source of information because we are very layered, right? And I'm still learning things about myself. I just figured something out new recently, that I've always known I was a late bloomer, but I didn't know why. And it's something else that goes back to the way I'm wired. I have to do all this research and analysis before I move forward. And okay, now I get it. So that's why I'm a late bloomer. And so now my guides are working with me to speed things up a little bit, because, you know, we're getting further along on the journey here, and it's time to kick it into high gear.
Yeah, really. Like, how late do we want to bloom? We want to bloom every day, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
There is something to that that's interesting, though. I do find that people have to reach a certain level of maturity to really want to do this deep dive into their soul. It's possible that the younger generation is doing it now sooner than we did, but I believe that it was, you know, and it's interesting to me that a lot of your clients are women, because I also find that women in midlife in particular, really love to do this soulful exploration, which is very powerful. Is there a spiritual reason for that you know of?
I don't think it's spiritual so much as it's just a fact of the way our women's lives have evolved. You know, in the beginning, many of us were very disempowered. And I remember back in the 70s, women didn't even have credit cards. So we've come a really long way in a fairly short period of time. That, coupled with the fact that until maybe the 2000s or so, the Akashic Records were not readily available to everybody, because our energy has shifted. Now they're everywhere. Everybody can access them easily if they know how and they have a desire.
Wonderful. I love hearing that. You know,
so it's evolution.
I just want to tell you something. One of my favorite parts of your book that has really stuck with me is where you teach people how to host a kind of conference of their ego self, their soul self, and their higher self, and putting the three together and getting them into alignment. That is really sophisticated, powerful information, but you presented it in a very easy and accessible way. I'm one of those people where every so often when I get really humming with energy and I'm moving along, my computers and things will just go up in smoke. And I always say this to people, and they thinking I'm being euphemistic. I have literally had sparks flying out of computers before, you know, or be standing next to a toaster and have it spontaneously burst into flames. I'm not dangerous, but I've always wondered where that kind of friction came from, and you provided an answer. And I find that fascinating. So is there a way, like, what do you advise, knowing what you know about the Akashic Records and the parts of us, for how we can accelerate safely without going through that kind of trauma?
Well, the trauma you're talking about is dissonance, and there's no way to totally avoid dissonance, because what happens is when you're moving forward and you're up leveling, your energy gets out of alignment. Your soul is out of alignment with your ego and your body, and that causes that sparks flying, as you talk about. And the only way to deal with that is to first be aware that it's going to happen, and then be aware that that is what is happening in the moment. Acknowledge it and say, okay, let's celebrate. This means we're on the upward swing. This is a good sign, because it means that we're moving towards getting back into alignment. So do it as fast as you can. That's the best advice. And when you know that's what's happening, you have a better attitude, and so your energy shifts more quickly, and you'll get past it faster. But just know it's part of the process. Growth is not always comfortable.
I like what you say, like, since you know you're in it, just do it faster. how do we do what's necessary faster?
Well, you know whatever it is that you're in the middle of doing. So like for me, when I was getting ready to write the book, things would happen, and I went off to the writers conference. My washer broke right before I'm ready to leave on this trip. And it's like, I could have gotten really upset about that. It could have cast a shadow on my trip. And I said, oh, dissonance, how cool. That means I'm on the right track. It's going to get better soon. And it's actually now it's a positive sign for me, because it's like, wow, if I'm not experiencing some dissonance, then I'm not trying hard enough.
And is it important that we evolve quickly? I mean, what is the purpose of that? I mean, is it going to make us happier? What's it going to do for us?
Well, getting other
is gonna... like, so, sorry.
Okay.
If I'm like, when I'm a child and I'm growing up, I think as a kid, I enjoyed a lot of freedom and I was creative and I had all that time on my hands, et cetera, et cetera. But I always hungered for the power to influence my world. Like, maybe that's my soul. I've always wanted to have a hand in shaping my world. And as an adult, sometimes that gets really exhausting.
Yeah.
So that maybe that's where I'm about to go on a vacation. So maybe that's why I'm saying it that way, because maybe I'll come back and, in a couple of weeks and I'll be like, yeah, let me shape the world again.
Well, what your soul is crying out for, right? Because I knew from a young age that I was here on this earth for a reason. I just didn't know what it was. So I spent decades searching for my purpose. And when I found the Akashic Records, it's like, oh my gosh, this is my purpose. And now I get it. And so I'm on fire to help other people find their purpose. So for you, Stephanie, what I get is that your energy is all about being this very creative force. And when you work, you need to be bringing your own original information to the world. For you, let's say you were a teacher. You would go nuts if you had to teach somebody else's curriculum, because you've got to be bringing your own original stuff out, right?
That's what I'm doing. I'm going to be writing a book down in Mexico. That's exactly
awesome.
What I'm doing. And guess what it's about? Creativity.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes. Yes. So
thank you. That was very confirming. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's beautiful. So for you, what's really important is that you bring that original material, but then it's like in raw format. And so you need to mold it. And it's really good if you've got somebody you can soundboard off of. Let's bounce these ideas back and forth so that you can mold them and sculpt them, because you're an artist, right? And you need to be getting your message out to the world, not only in written form, but you could be on stages speaking. That would be a really good way for you to express yourself. And of course, you could be a fabulous copywriter if you wanted, because you just spontaneously channel copy. This is just how your soul is wired. And it's a marvelous gift.
I love that. Well, I'll have a few people in the audience if I give a speech. Anyway, so that's wonderful. Okay, I didn't realize I was going to get a message, and I'm very excited I did. So this is what it feels like when you read for people. It's very seamless. And, so what's the experience like for you when you're connected to the Akashic Records and you're getting information from the guides?
Well, the more I've done it, the more I'm almost always connected. It's like it's just a thought away. And so for me, what's happened is this really delicious experience that most of the time I'm in bliss. I'm joyful. It's exciting. Every day is like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And there's so much to learn. Like one time I'm in the records and this guide tells me time is fungible. And I'm like, what? Why do I need to know that? What is that about? And so I've been chewing on that information for a while, and I'm starting to understand it. But, sometimes they'll give me these really deep things that my brain is just not quite ready to take yet, let alone other people.
Did your guide actually use the word fungible?
Yes.
And so you might need to explain for our listeners what that word even means.
Okay. I barely knew.
You on that for a while.
I know. It's like I had an idea of what it meant, but I just couldn't quite get it all together. And over time, I've gotten it. It's being flexible, right? Time is fungible. It's flexible. It's not this finite, straight, linear thing that we think that it is. In the fifth dimension, which is where the Akashic Records are, time is like overlapping, and it's more circular than linear. And so it is very fungible because timelines are crossing and parallels are, I mean, it's really complicated stuff. And I don't know that we really need to get it all in detail. They just wanted us to get that as humans, we get a little bit too focused on time and being very straight line thinking. And they'd like us to loosen up a bit. Because when we do that, we open ourselves up to more of the experience and expanding our consciousness.
I love it. And in your book, when you report the words of the guides, it's really more like you're describing, sometimes it's almost like a fairy tale, like it's a little story with a scene that you're in. So is it very, I mean, obviously you can't be like driving your car and in a forest talking to, you know, some old lady, but, you know, like you know, when that's kind of when you're in a meditation, right? It's almost like a guided journey.
Yeah, I'm in a meditative state when I'm getting those kind of messages, and they're like movies. And so I describe them the way I do because the other person can't see it. And I want them to get the fullness of the experience. So I try to describe every single little detail, even if you go left or right. I want to say that because I don't know if that might be important to that person. Maybe left or right is an issue for them. So yeah, they come out in incredible detail. And what they do is they'll use all of these metaphors because we can relate to them. So that's just how it comes. Now, all of my life, I've gotten these little visual flashes when I'm talking to people. But earlier on, I didn't know what that was all about. I thought everybody did, so I didn't think it was unusual. And I never shared it with anybody. I don't know why. Maybe I thought they'd think I was crazy. But now I get it. When I'm talking to somebody and I get that little mini visual download, I'm supposed to share it with them. So now I do. I just freely tell. If I get something, I'm going to stop and tell you right now because it was important or it wouldn't have come through.
Interesting. I love that. And so we have these soul purposes, and as we kind of wake up to them and evolve to their potential, I guess, to explore their full potential, we're really going to feel happy because that actually is what our soul wants most.
Yeah, what I'm telling people these days, it finally all distilled into this simple sentence that the most important question in life is, what feeds my soul? Mm-hmm. And when you figure that out and you start doing it, everything else gets easier because you're in energetic alignment with your purpose. That's what it's all about, and that's what we're all striving for. Now, if we go back to you, Stephanie, you intuitively stepped into your purpose. You've been doing parts of it. You haven't been doing it as fully as you could, and that would bring more joy to your experience, but you got there. You're lucky. There are some people who are nowhere close to doing anything about their purpose, and they're so out of alignment. And I've been telling people recently, you know, when we're in alignment, it's like we're this straight up and down vessel, right? And so Source is pouring all of this energy into us to animate us and to help us on our journey. But when we're out of alignment, it's like, you know, we're cockeyed. And so the source energy is getting poured all over the place, and we can become very depleted. So that's why energetic alignment is so important. It's our connection to that restorative force.
And how do we, I'm going to go back to this, how do we bring our ego along with us?
Well, you know, the ego has got this thing about it wants to keep us safe and get us to death. So ego doesn't like to necessarily step out and take chances. And soul is out there saying, oh, come on, let's go. We got all these exciting things to do. So ego's like this anchor holding us back, and soul is racing ahead, and poor higher self is like stuck in the middle in this tug of war. So once we make friends with ego, which is what I talked about in the book, and we explain to ego, hey, we're on the same team here. And look at all these wonderful things that we can accomplish, which are going to make you feel good. Just can you lighten up a little bit and let us go? And what I found is I never needed to repeat that exercise after the initial time. I kind of do little mini ones every once in a while. It's an ego check if I notice that maybe ego's starting to step up again and get a little pushy. But once you've done it, and you've made that agreement and you've really solidly agreed, it's done and you can move forward. And I find that, you know, Ego in that particular experience was all buttoned up. And by the time we finished, she had opened a few buttons and she was a little looser. And she's gotten even looser since then. Now she's actually enjoying the ride and is coming along. And so it's not really such a big issue. So we absolutely can do it, but awareness is key.
I figure my ego is in charge of keeping my body together. And when I forget, because I'm a writer, it's very easy to go into the hologram and forget I have a body sitting in the chair. And so when I make promises to my body that I'll take care of it, it lets me do my work. And when I ignore it too long, it breaks down so that I have to stop working. Mm-hmm. And so that negotiation is a daily negotiation for me. So I really relate to that. So here's a big one. And it's kind of a trick question because I already think I know the answer. I'm testing you. And I've asked many we teachers this question over the years. If we have a purpose in life, aren't we always doing it no matter what we're doing? It really doesn't matter if I'm a teacher or a writer or a cop, I can still be living my purpose, correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because, you know, our life is a journey, right? So we start out on this journey, and when we're young, we've got more memories of the past. So we can start with that. But, you know, things happen in life. We get off course. Some people get so far off course that they're not doing anything at all like their purpose. And their lives are hard. It's a lot more of a struggle than it needs to be. And that's okay. It's choices that they've made that have led them to that place. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what they've chosen for that life journey. They'll get another chance to do it again. So it's not, you know, it's not a crisis. It's better for the soul and more fulfilling. As I say, you know, soul satisfying if you're doing your purpose, because then you are expanding and you're growing and learning, and that means you're resolving more karmic baggage so that the next time around you can go even further. So like, you know, these child prodigies that come along,
yeah,
and this little kid that can sing opera with such soul, I'm convinced it's because they were opera singers in the past life. They brought that forth with them, and that's why they can do it with such depth of feeling. They're remembering that. And more souls are being born today.
I still find it so hard to believe that if I'm a writer in one life, I have to be a writer for 1,000 lifetimes. That sounds like hell to me.
No, it's not like that. You get to choose how you express your purpose. So you might come into another life and you might be a motivational speaker where you are, you know, like this evangelist, and you change people's lives because you have the power to inspire with your words. And you're just this natural channel. It's coming through you all the time, whether you're conscious of it or not. You get to choose what you do with it, how you shape it. So no, it wouldn't be hell unless you chose it to be hell. You're always choosing. Choice is sacrosanct. Your guides will never interfere with that. So whatever's happening, it's what you chose. If you don't like it, make a new choice. It's that simple.
This is so powerful. Make a new choice. Feed your soul. So if I'm doing something and I don't feel like I'm being nourished, I can stop and do something else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you believe that if we're doing the thing that nourishes us, we will experience abundance? I mean, it's, you know, the whole law of attraction thing seems to have become very material to me, the way people approach it. Like, if I do 1, 2, 3, I get rich, you know, or whatever. But I think you're talking about nourishment that is energetically abundant, if I might say that, emotionally abundant. You know, I mean, or do you think that if I am the prodigy and I get on my purpose, people will be so appreciative of the value that they'll just shower me with gold?
No, That's where the misalignment happens. You see, when you're doing your purpose, your energy is in such perfect alignment that you are attracting to you those things. So it's not that they're, quote, showering you with gold. It's that you are attracting to yourself more delicious experiences. It's like you're a magnet. But our words do have great power. You know, when I had my database business, I always used to say to people, I have more work than I know what to do with. And I did. And I was swamped. But I didn't know that I was creating that experience through my words. If I had, I would have changed my words a little bit. So it's like that. That's how law of attraction works. So it's a combination of the words we speak, the thoughts we have, and our energy. Because if we're not in energetic alignment and we're not taking positive actions, see, we need all of those elements. The positive action is like the spark that ignites things. So you need the alignment, you need the action, you need the words and the thoughts. It's the whole package. So it's an oversimplification to say, oh, I'm just going to ask the universe. But here's what happens. If you're doing all of those other things and you're in alignment, then when you're driving down the road, you can say, hey, universe, I need a really good parking space up there. And you'll get it because you're already in that space of attracting what you want. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes the Akashic Records seem very practical. It's almost like having a mentor that you can call every time you need to make a decision.
Well, you know, it's like, for years, I wanted to be a Hay House author, right? That was, if you're a metaphysical person, you want to be with Hay House. And so I didn't know if that was even going to be possible. I hadn't even had a book at that point. It was just kind of this long-term thing. It's like since I was 6 years old, I wanted to be an author. I don't know why. It was just always with me. Maybe I'll learn someday that I was an author in another life. I don't know. I know I've been a healer. So this big long-term dream, right? And all of a sudden, as I've been working in the records, I've been working on myself, learning and growing, things started coming together. And last year was this phenomenal year of manifestation. So I go to the speakers conference, which for me was huge because I had been living as a hermit for 10 years on my mountain because I'm an introvert and I didn't want to get out. I wanted to do my business on the internet and I have to deal with people directly, which is kind of dumb, right? So I go out and I go to this conference and it opened things up. And by my taking that action, I came home from that conference to find an email telling me there was going to be this writers conference in Maui. And guess what? I've been trying to manifest Maui for more than 10 years. I was turning 60. It was my 30th wedding anniversary. And we wanted to go to Maui. And it was like, oh my gosh, and Hay House all at the same time? I couldn't have even dreamed of asking for that much. And so I go, and part of the conference is that I get to submit a book proposal to be considered to get into Hay House. And that's the only way you can get in these days. They're not taking new people. So it was like all of these fabulous manifestations. And I wasn't even trying that hard at that point. I was just going along, doing my purpose, doing what I felt led to do. And then I came back from that, as you know, and started writing the book in July. And here we are. We took this journey together. And in November, I've got this amazing book in my hands. It was amazing. I don't even know what's going to happen next year. I just know it's going to be really exciting.
I love it. I love it. It's a wonderful story. And it's interesting. I think you're throwing off so much energy. It's making the photo that you're on, you know, like go in little fits and starts. But I feel the energy talking to you. So
I'll try to dial it back a little.
Can I just feed back something to you? I mean, your presence is delightful. You're funny, you're articulate, you know, all of that. So it's wonderful for me to be able to share with people through these kinds of interviews what goes on behind the scene with authors who are working on their books. I get to experience this on a daily basis, you know, which is so fun for me to see your dream be realized. And with or without, you know, a particular publisher, you know, you're staying on track and producing your book. And I know that you're producing courses and videos, and people can go to your website, Akasha Unleashed, and they can pick up a guided meditation. Isn't that correct?
Oh, there's actually quite a number of them there, yeah.
Great. So they can get on your mailing list. They can pick up this audio track that will help them to connect to their guides and their records. And they can get into this kind of really an exploratory space with you, which is fantastic. And I know that you do readings for people. So, and I still want a personal reading from you. I think I should do that in the new year. And, you know, so if there were anything else that you would want people to know about your book, a takeaway, what would it be?
Well, it's all about empowerment. The records are empowerment. My book was to bring together enough information to give you a quick start to help you get into your records if that's your choice. And from there, you get to choose. There's that word again. You get to choose what you do with that. So be as empowered and have the most delicious life experience possible. And open their eyes that there's more out there for them than they've maybe even dreamed for themselves.
I love it. I think that's a wonderful last thought. You know, there's more for you than you've dreamed of for yourself. And this is the missing manual. If you were, your very first sentence says something like, you know, if you were to buy a refrigerator or a dishwasher, it would come with a manual. This is your manual. And so people should take advantage of it. Again, we're talking with Debbra Lupien. Her book is available on Amazon and Kindle. And, you know, keep your eyes open for the Akasha Unleashed, the missing manual to you. Thank you so much.